Thank you. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining the Disability Disaster Access and Resources and Chromebook inventory training with our Ability Tools statewide database known as NATADS. Just to give us a little grounding on why we use NATADS to get started, CFILC is the Assistive Technology Network Hub for the state of California. We hold that very unique title as the only state in the country to have AT intertwined with independent living centers. So in every other state that you go to, the AT program is either housed in a University of Excellence, in a state government department, in some disability-specific organizations such as Easter Seals and other United Cerebral Palsy, a couple of those. A third of the nation's assistive technology programs are housed within nonprofit. But again, we are the only one. As always, California is very different. We are the only state to have IL and AT together. Part of our requirement for assistive technology is that we use this national database that most of our partnering states use as well. And this determination of which database we use is determined by the California Assistive Technology Advisory Committee. The ATAC is what we call them, and I know we have an ATAC member with us today. Jorge from Cecil is one of our Independent Living Center ATAP members, and ATAP does the state plan similarly to our Independent Living State Plan, where they determine what the priorities are for the use of AT money. And part of that plan included transitioning into a new national database last year, which is NATADS. And as a result, we have used all of 2019 primarily to get all of our AT advocates at all of the independent living centers to put in what we call their AT state leadership activities, public awareness, training, information and assistance, all into the NATAD system, which is a requirement for us as the hub and why we are providing technical assistance and training to those who need assistance in using the NATAD system. So because this system is statewide and because CFILC did use AT dollars to purchase Chromebooks for independent living centers, we want to make sure that we can count that towards our deliverables in our statewide grant. And there are many ways that we can increase those efforts in months and years to come by educating you all how we might want to continue to increase the use of NATADS. But today we're going to focus simply on putting the Chromebooks in NATADS and also putting the batteries for the Disability Disaster Access and Resource Program into NATADS. Catherine is one of our AT staff members at CFILC. She's done a fabulous job of creating some guides that you'll get access to after today's training, and I believe she sent them out about an hour before today's training as well. If there are any additional changes that come up that would be helpful to add to that guide, we will do that and then send out the final versions after this training as well. Please, please use this training opportunity to ask any questions. We are always available to answer anything that we can. And again, because we are the AT hub, we do not have any authority to tell people what they have to do in their positions. We're not your funder, but we are your technical assistance arm, and we are here to support you in providing the services needed to the community. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to Catherine, who's going to take us through the materials and then actually a deep dive into the system itself so that we can have some visuals and hands-on experiences. Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Christina. Hi, all. I'm very excited to be with you guys today. So I'm thinking maybe the first thing we're going to do is take a look at the activity guides that were sent to you. They were sent last night, but they were also sent this morning with some updates. So for the most updated materials, you should check in your email. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. And so you got 3 different guides. The first guide that you received was the client creation and maintenance guide. This is a guide that is going to get you through the entire process of getting your consumers into your system, and then how you can perform functions within that system for those consumers. We're going to be going over all of this with a live tour of NATADS, so we don't really need to go over everything that's going on in this guide because we're going to be doing that shortly. And so the next guide that you guys received was the Chromebook for inventory entry instructions. This is going to be very specific to putting your Chromebooks into your inventory. It's going to have all of the descriptions that you need. It's going to have all of the prices. It's going to have the manufacturer. It's going to let you know where you can find all of your serial numbers for all of your unique data entry. It's going to have the purchase dates. All the information that you need to have on hand to put these into your system properly is included within this form. So there's also the image that you can use to put into NATADS. I've also attached that image as a JPEG separately so that you don't have to try and go clipping it from the document. Same thing goes for the Yeti 3000. It's the same form. It's the same guide, but it has the different information for the Yetis, specific to getting your Yetis in. All of the descriptions, all of the extra accessories that you're going to be putting into NATADS, along with the image, which I've also sent separately, so you don't have to go flipping through this also. And so with these guides, we're going to go ahead and do a walkthrough, a step-by-step walkthrough of these activities. So we're going to be doing a step-by-step walkthrough of these activities. Feel free to ask questions throughout the process. We're going to go through the Chromebooks. We're going to do the client entry, but we're also going to do the Chromebooks and the Yetis. It's going to be the same process, but that way you can see it the first time, kind of get your bearings. We'll go through it a second time so that you can see another item being put in, and ask questions as we go. It's the best way that you guys can learn instead of having to wait for answers toward the end. So let's go ahead and get
This
started.
is Megan. We have a question already. What should folks do if they did not receive the email with these materials?
I'm going to send these materials back out again. And if you still, for some reason, don't get these materials, then reach out to me and I can send it out to you individually. I know that we had been having with getting our emails out to everyone. There were some people that were having some trouble getting their registration confirmations. And so if that's something you were experiencing, maybe that might be an issue that was going on. So reach out to me directly. You guys have my email. You actually have it right now on your screen. Catherine, Kathrine, @cfilc.org. If you don't get the materials that you need, please reach out and I will be happy to send anything you need your way, and also provide any extra hands-on guidance that you might need.
And this is Christina. I just want to pop in real quick. Erin, I'm going to forward it to you, but for others who might be experiencing a similar situation, we did learn from some of you yesterday when you reached out that some of our information ended up in your spam and junk boxes. So please check those as well. But Erin, I'm going to send that to you right now as we speak.
Thanks, Christina. All right, guys. So anytime, oh, Megan?
Yes, sorry. So we do have somebody with their hand raised as well. So if folks on Zoom can type in the Q&A, that's where we prefer questions to be. But if you cannot, if that's not accessible to you, please do raise your hand and I can come unmute your microphone. We do have a few more questions. Folks are saying check your junk mail if you didn't receive the email. That's a good suggestion. Thank you. And go ahead, Catherine. I think we can get started.
Okay. All right, guys, feel free to chime in anytime. Megan's going to let me know if you guys have any questions. So anytime you're getting started with NATADS, log in. So whenever you're going to log in, you're going to be using your work email, and it's going to be a password of your choice. After we did your onboarding, I gave you sort of a basic password that you were advised to change when you went in. And so it should be a unique password to yourself. If you've lost your password, you could always click on this link here to reach Vance. But Vance is a very busy man. He's developing this system for somewhere over 30 states, and he has to maintain it for all of them. And so it can take a while for him to get back sometimes. So feel free to reach out to me. I have admin functions. If you just cannot figure out your password, we can change it for you. And that way you can get on your way faster.
Catherine, this is Megan. Folks are asking where they can create an account for NATADS.
What was that?
Where can folks create an account for NATADS?
I create their accounts for them. Everyone should have an account. If you don't have an account, reach out to me and I can create a new one for you. But
This is Christina. I just want to quickly add clarification. Every AT advocate or coordinator at each center is who has a login and username. That is always typically the person who has access to the NATAD system. That does not mean that it needs to be exclusive to that person, but when Catherine refers to who currently has it, that's who she's referring to. We absolutely can add more users in the future, but it's your AT advocates generally who are using this on a regular basis.
Thank you, Christina. Thank you for the clarification. All right, guys, are you ready to go? Let's go ahead and log in. So from this screen, you're going to go ahead and select day-to-day new. Some of you might have the old NATADS functions, some of you don't. It just depends on which functions you have, but you're always going to be working in the day-to-day new. And so if you're going to be adding a client into your system, you're going to go to the Client Inventory Functions banner and select the button Clients. It's generally a good idea if you're adding somebody into the system to check to make sure that they're not already in the system, because you're going to fill out an entire form and then the system's going to bounce it back at you and say, this person already exists. Would you like to merge the account? And so you did all of the work for no real reason. So go ahead and click on the View Clients function, and you can search by any field that you have at your disposal. You can search by last name, first name, full name, company name, anything that you have at your disposal to be able to see if this person's in the system. Go ahead and choose that function, type that name into there if you're using the name. And most areas, you're not going to need to select a region. It's just going to be already locked to your region. You can hit search. And if the client already exists, they're going to pop up here. And you have to excuse me, I'm going to jump between client and consumer because consumer is the terminology we use, but in NATADS it's client, and so it tends to get a little bouncy. So if they exist here, you can just click on them and go ahead and get started with the activities that we'll discuss later. But if they don't pop up, you can go ahead and click on the Add Client button that is just above the Go Back button on the bottom of the screen. So that's going to drop you on the client entry screen. Underneath the client entry screen, you're going to see the client information. From here, you're going to select the region that's appropriate for your client. You're going to put in your client's first name. The middle name isn't necessary, but you can add it if you'd like, and their last name. Now, alternately, if you're working with a company, with an organization, rather than working with an individual, you can select to put the company in there rather than a contact person. This will be useful if you're working with a school district, an employment agency, a healthcare provider, or an area agencies on aging. You can put that in here and that will suffice. You don't need to have a contact person. You can put in their title if they have one. Again, unless it has an asterisk, it's not a necessary item to put in. You're going to select how that person identifies, if they're an individual with a disability, family guardian or authorized rep, or representatives of any of these different fields.
And I want to just pause right here. This is Christina. Some of you that are very grained and rooted in IL may be wondering, why does it allow you to pick other folks aside from the actual person with the disability? Again, that is part of the difference between AT Act law requirements versus the Rehab Act in WIOA. The AT Act allows you to serve a broader audience of people associated with the individual with the disability rather than just the individual themselves. Thank you, Catherine.
Thanks, Christina. There is a lot of muddiness between the information that people have regarding IL and the AT Act, and so it's really nice to have that clarification pointed out appropriately. So underneath the client type, you can select any of these options here, but you can also type in a new option and it'll put it into the list for you to be able to use at this time and at future times. So we're going to go ahead and add somebody in here. So let's go.
And Catherine, for those who are visually impaired walking through this with us, can you tell us what you're doing and who you're typing as you're doing it?
Sorry about that. I start typing and all of my other functions just drop away. So I'm typing the name Jane into the first name field and Rodriguez into the last name field. I'm going to go ahead and select a region. For me, that would be CFILC. I'm going to select a company name. Let's go ahead and stick with CFILC. I can add in a title. Let's say that she's a teacher. So you can type teacher in there. And she would be a representative of education. So you go ahead and select that client category for her. And we can decide from the drop-down menu from client type that she's a speech and language pathologist. So from there, what you're going to want to do is make sure that the consumer is checked as active, and you're also going to make sure that they are checked for sharing statewide. You're going to want to share the client statewide. This makes it so that everybody has access to this consumer. So this works so if your consumer moves, they can interact with their new independent living center flawlessly. You can also have it be a really good safeguard in case you have consumers who are negligent consumers or perhaps malicious, have malicious interactions with the organizations and try to check items out and not return them, or they're really tardy about returning them. You can make notes about these consumers in their files, and if you share the client statewide, everybody can see it. So if they realize that they aren't able to operate that way within your region and they start making a request in other regions, the other people who are using the NATAD system are going to be able to see the notes that you've put in, and there will be a red flag up. They'll be able to make some cautionary decisions regarding that consumer.
And this is Christina. I want to share that this is one of those areas, because we are cross-sharing consumer information, that we do need to have a release of information for the NATAD system signed off by the consumer so that they know that their information is being accessed by other independent living centers across the state. And I want to point out one of the other benefits that Catherine may not know about because she specifically works AT mostly. We recently had a situation, and one of the reasons why we've created the Disability Disaster Access Resources application process the way we have is so that we can see if there is an applicant that is trying to apply in multiple places. And so when the applications come through on our website for the DAR program, Lisa and Christina automatically see them, and we can pull out duplicates. We did have a situation where we've had already an applicant apply in 2 counties next to each other to try to qualify for a battery. So it is very important for that statewide client piece to be hit. As we all know, when it comes to our batteries in the DAR program, we have limited capacity there. And while the program is not about batteries, it has multiple benefits. We've certainly seen people already attempting to take advantage of it. And just a quick plug for anybody who hasn't registered yet, we are doing the full-blown disability disaster access and resource webinar next Tuesday, and we will have a couple of centers co-presenting with myself. Thank you. Go ahead, Catherine.
This is Megan. Catherine, we do have a question in the chat, and I see someone with their hands up. Would you like to take those now?
Yeah, let's go for it.
The question in the chat is asking, is there a way to increase the size of the font when you log into NATADS?
So really, there isn't a function within NATADS, but if you like, I can go ahead and zoom in for these purposes, and this is the option that is universally or should be universally available to be able to increase the size. And it's actually moderately functional. I know a lot of times just zooming in can be problematic because then you find yourself scrolling across the page, but for the most part, NATADS kind of sticks to the left. It aligns left, and occasionally you'll have to scroll across to the right to look at things, but for the most part, you're going to have a full field of vision even if you zoom in this much.
Great. And our other one is Brian has his hand up. So Brian, I'm going to go ahead and unmute your microphone now. Are you there, Brian?
Looks like he's still muted.
See that. Brian, if you can unmute yourself, you have access on our end.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Brian.
Yes, this is to Christina. You mentioned the release of confidential information agreement. Is that covered specifically with regards to the Yeti batteries? Is that covered in the long-term loan / release of liability / release of confidential information agreement? Or is it a separate release of confidential information agreement needed? Over.
Great question, Brian. This is Christina. It is your standard release of information form that each of your centers is already using when it comes to releasing information to another vendor or company like Social Security when you're making a three-way call on behalf of a consumer.
That's it for questions, Catherine. So go ahead. Thank you.
All right, thanks. I also forgot to mention in the field just underneath region, there's a state client ID field. That's going to be auto-filled when you finish the client creation. They're going to have their own unique code that's associated with them. The Do Not Loan button, don't click that just yet. That is a function to assist NATADS users in future client account maintenance. Like we were discussing, sometimes you have malicious users coming in and trying to take out fraudulent loans. This is a good way to be able to let people know this is not an appropriate active user. Underneath that, you're going to see the address banner. There are two fields for your address. Address line 1, you can type in your full address, and the address line 2 is for any suites or apartment numbers. But my advice, a little kind of NATADS pro tip for you guys, is start at the bottom. If you type in your zip code and let it generate, and be sure to select it from the drop-down menu, because if you just type it in and then exit the field, you're going to get an error message. If there's a drop-down field, they want you to use the drop-down field. But once you've typed that in, it's already going to auto-populate the correct county, the correct city, and obviously the state, because this is the programming, this is the system for the state of California. And then all you have to manually type in is the specific address. So. I know the ILCKC people were really hoping I put in a real address in there. So once you get down past that address field, you're going to see a banner for contact information. You can select from the drop-down menu under contact type which type of information you have for this consumer. So let's say you have their personal email, their work email, their cell phone. Let's select cell phone. If you notice, it popped the page up a little bit because it refreshed that portion of the page. And so type in the phone number for your consumer, and then you can put in contact notes. You can say, contact only after 5 p.m. And if this is the most preferred form of contact for this person, go ahead and select the box that's next to primary contact, and then select the button that says add contact. Once you click on that button, it'll show a banner that says success contact added, and you'll see that there is a field specifically for that contact. You can continue to add in as many contacts as you have available for them, mark them as primary or not primary, whatever's needed, make any kind of contact notes that you need to put in there. A lot of times it can be very helpful, especially if you worked with a consumer some months ago and you come back and you're like, I can't really remember this person very well. That's really where detail in this portion is very useful. So you can go in and you can remove and edit these fields by going into the area where they're located. These are hyperlinked. I know they're the same color, so it can be difficult to tell that they are, but they are hyperlinked and you can access them. Underneath that field where you have the contact information, you'll see a banner that says notes. It says enter any internal notes about this client. I would say that the best rule of thumb here is to put in the inciting reason that you've interacted with this client. So you know the consumer came in and was in need of a rollator. We service them on this day at this location. You know, if you have satellite offices, it's a good thing to point out which office you were located at. And describe how the interaction went. Who was there? Were they there with family members? Were they there alone? Were they accompanied by some sort of regional center worker who was assisting them? That way you have the most detailed information available for any future work with them. And also it's really good for us to have those details for reporting purposes. So once you complete that, you're going to see a field underneath there that's a banner underneath that field that says consumer information. And it's going to ask you, the consumer has signed all liability and release forms with an asterisk, it is required. And what Christina was discussing before was these exact same forms. And you cannot create this consumer until they have signed these forms and you have them on file. Once you have them signed and on file, you can select true and then hit the save button at the very bottom of the page. And so that has created your consumer. It'll drop you into the next screen that says client view, and it has an overview of all the information you just inputted. One pretty important thing that I actually forgot to point out was that a lot of people, when they put in the contact information, they see the save contact button and they think that that's actually saving the consumer. They'll hit it and then they'll navigate away and it didn't save any of the work for them. Make sure you hit the blue save button at the bottom of the screen. Anytime you're inputting any kind of information in ATADS, there's going to be a blue save button at the bottom, and you need to make sure you hit that, otherwise it's going to just erase all the work you just put in. And if you do notice, we have, I had a celebratory moment with a couple of AT advocates over the course of the past week where we all noticed that we have a session time remaining at the top of the screen. We can thank Vance for that. A lot of times NATADS would time out on us. You know, you get a call, you're assisting a consumer and you were in the middle of filling out a form and you go back and you try to finish filling out the form and it timed you out and you lost all of your information. So now we have this timer at the top letting us know how much more time we have on the page. Anytime you go and navigate to a new page, it resets your timer for another hour. And that's even an extra bonus because before it was only a 30-minute window. Now we have an hour window. So Vance may not be here, but I am still thanking him. So from your consumer information page, you can see that there are activities that can be associated with this consumer all throughout the page. There's a list of device loans, device demonstrations, device reutilization, state financing, training, information and assistance, technical assistance, and custom activities. Underneath all of these banners, there are fields with records that you can have to view of any kind of activity that this consumer has participated in. Underneath those records, you can see that there's a button that says Add Device Loan. add device demonstration. From here, you can associate any activity with your consumer. So if you're thinking about it in how it works practically, if you have a consumer come in, which I know is a novel concept right now for us, but if you have a consumer come in and you do their intake, you get all their information, you put them into the system, now you can just simply click on an activity and be able to navigate toward that activity, and their information is already going to be associated with it.
Catherine, this is Megan. We've got a couple questions around what kind of forms the consumer needs to sign to add them to the database. Could we clarify that?
So it's the liability and release forms. There should be some that are, I see Christina's ready to chime in. Go ahead, Christina.
Well, I just wanted to, you're going to the right place, and I'm going to let you take that, but I want to remind folks, since we have a variety of ILC and AT staff with us today, that consumers that are going to receive any type of assistive technology should go through your regular intake process first, so that your center is getting credit for serving them. We don't want you to lose out on those numbers. And CFILC is working with Vance, our developer of NATADS, to see if there is also a way in the future that we might be able to take the data you're inputting into NATADS so that you can sync it into your system that you're using locally as well. I can't say that's on the short-term horizon, but it's something that, you know, we hope to be able to do to limit people from having to duplicate efforts and putting information into your center computer system software, and then NATADS as well. But to that question, and I was just typing in the chat, go through the regular consumer intake process, and then when it comes to the actual devices, we will want to make sure that they are in NATADS. If it is a battery they are receiving, the Disability Disaster Access and Resource Center staff at your center have received a copy of the specific waiver and release of liability for that program. They have that. If it's for a Chromebook, Catherine will explain how the Chromebook paperwork works, which is just like any other piece of AT that would be checked out through the system. The battery is the only thing that requires something additional because of the liability involved in the batteries.
Yeah, thank you, Christina. And that is why it's worded that way. It's the consumer assigned all liability and release forms. It's to be ambiguous. It's to make sure that with every activity and with any piece of AT, just make sure that any of the appropriate forms associated with this activity, with this piece of AT, have been covered. The Chromebooks, those are a grant. Those you just need to get the consumer information, make sure you have, we're going to go over the process of entering the Chromebooks into the system right now. And once they're in your system, you sign them out as a long-term loan or an open-ended loan rather. And you make sure that you put it in the system and they're good to go. There's not really any additional work that needs to go into the Chromebooks. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Christina, or are we good?
One thing I do want to add, and I'm going to look into it because Vincent is typing in the chat box or in the Q&A. At the beginning of COVID, DOR had put out emails referencing the need to bypass the wet signature requirements for most documents. And I see that Vince believes that the exception to that is a consumer release of information form. So I'm going to double check on that with somebody above the staff member that you've checked with, Vince, to make sure that that is indeed the case. And I will make sure if I don't get an answer during the training to send it out to you afterwards.
Live troubleshooting from Christina Mills. Thank you. All right. Do we have any other questions or can we keep on going, Megan?
I think we're good to keep going for now, Catherine. Thank you.
All right, great. So another function that you should know before we navigate away from the client functions is you do have the ability to delete your consumer. That could be limited depending on who is using it. There are different administrative functions, and we're probably going to have a larger discussion about that later on. You can also make modifications to your consumers. So if you have a consumer, like we said before, sharing it statewide makes it so that if they move, let's say you move from San Bernardino to Eureka, then they go into their new independent living center and they're still in the system, and you want to make sure that they're associated with their activities, but you need to update their file. So you can go in and hit the modify button in the top left corner, just underneath the top banner, and you are taken back to the same screen that you were using to put in the client information, the client entry page. So you can update their address as needed. You can update their contact information as needed. They change up their cell phone. And you can make any modifications to their notes if you have any new developments, if they are identifying with an additional disability and they want to have it notated in their file so that they can choose from more AT to be able to utilize, then you can add that into their notes at their request. And so that is going to be about it for your client maintenance. The more things that you're going to be able to do from here are going to be, let's see if we can let the screen load, are going to be performing or recording activities associated with that consumer. And so that's going to be a different training. We'd be here all day. You guys would never get to go home. So we're going to cover that in a different training, but that is basically what you need to know to be able to create and maintain a consumer in the NATAD system. Do you guys have any other questions while I get us set up for the next portion?
Catherine, we do have one more question here. So it says, if the item being added to NATADS is going to be hidden from the consumers, such as the Yetis and Chromebooks, is there another release of information required?
This is Christina. I'm not sure I understand that question.
Yeah. I think that they're saying that if the items are hidden from consumers to see on NATADS, so the Chromebooks and Yetis are just visible to staff.
Yeah.
Is there an extra form that the consumer would need to complete?
No. No, it should all work the same. The only difference between the consumer having access to it through the NATAD site and you only having access to it is that they're gonna be coming in for this need and you're going to assign as needed. It's not going to be something that's being advertised on the website. It's more you're going to be having consumers come in and you're going to be making these assessments. It's a much more in-depth process on your end, and it's less of a consumer looking online and seeing if there's an item available for them to check out or to take out as an open-ended loan.
Great, thank you. And if that did not answer your question properly, please send us a follow-up one.
And I just want to elaborate quickly. This is Christina, because I think it might have been somebody who's more familiar with the NATAD system. Just that we're not doing a whole entire training on the benefits of NATADs today. We're specifically focusing on a couple of areas. But when we refer to looking at the entire system to see what assistive technology is available, I do want to note, just to limit confusion, that is something folks can do. Consumers can access the database from a public point of view on the Ability Tools website and see what is available across California. And there are thousands of pieces of assistive technology in the database. I'm not sure if all of you are familiar with that, but it is to allow consumers of all ages, educators, senior centers, workforce folks to check out that equipment and see if it works for them prior to advocating to maybe have it funded from regional center, Department of Rehab, their health insurance. So just wanted to point out why the question came up about all assistive technology. And we can do something else on that larger scale later if it's beneficial for folks who are less familiar with it.
Thank you, Christina. And we do cover a lot of that with our onboarding whenever a new AT advocate comes on, and the AT advocates who are in the know, or the program managers who are aware of the onboarding process, have had other staff members sit in on these. We cover a lot of this information. We cover NATADs, we cover the AT Act, we cover programs that are provided through CFILC. And so if you are interested, please reach out. I love doing that. I love talking with you guys, and I love sharing information. So reach out to me if you need any kind of information. All right, so from here, let's go ahead and move on to adding Chromebooks to the inventory. So like I said, we're going to be going through the process twice. We're going to add Chromebooks, and then we're going to add Yetis. This is to make sure that you guys get it cemented in. I know it might feel a little redundant, but that way we're addressing people who are here for Chromebooks, we're addressing people who are here for Yetis, and that repetition should be able to help with the process.
Catherine, this is Megan. We have one more question on the clients page.
Yeah.
So if you check the Add Consumer Statewide button, does that mean that other centers can then edit that consumer's record as well?
Yes, yeah, it does. I can see that there could be pros and cons associated with that, but it is really a very good tool to have at your disposal, because then you have that input. I know that we had a discussion about a specific consumer just the other day on the DLDC listserv. We were discussing somebody who was trying to check out multiple items. We all chimed in saying we've interacted with this consumer, and it makes it so that rather than having this big conversation on the listserv where we're all talking about these experiences and just recalling things, there is a database that contains all of that information, and we can all make these notations when they occur. And then you have this long laundry list, this history of activity that everybody can see, instead of their first interaction being, I'm going to loan this item out to this person and I wonder why it didn't come back. They now have that information that they would have only had if they had been privy to that conversation. So any kind of advocate who gets hired on tomorrow isn't going to have been part of that conversation. And now if they can participate with the NATADS inventory, they can look at that consumer when they have that point of contact, and they can see all of this history, and it can help advise them in moving forward in their activities with that individual.
This is Christina. I just want to add that we had a situation last year where by accident, complete mistake, that somebody who works for a device lending demonstration center accidentally, who was also an AT advocate, which is very common, posted a DLDC consumer's information on the public AT listserv, and that is a violation of HIPAA. So we had to take measures internally as a result of that. And so using the database to make sure that we are preventing issues like that occurring is very important. We do our very best, and the DLDC listserv is exclusive to DLDC staff for that reason, so that we can check things and make sure that no one's being taken advantage of and that people are getting the support that they need out in the community. But we want to make sure that we're keeping good case notes in the file as well, because as we all know, there is a lot of turnaround, and we want to prevent HIPAA violations from accidentally occurring as well.
All right, thank you, Christina. And that is a good point. With an ATAD system, if you can't add the consumer to NATADs without having them sign these liability release waivers, then if they're in the system, they have signed those waivers, and the waivers are relevant within the system. And so rather than having these situations where we're sharing information with one another in other spheres and potentially creating issues with HIPAA violations, this is a safe space to be able to discuss the consumers, to be able to have these notations on these consumers where their information is safe and protected. All right, so if we are all done with questions, and you can let me know, Megan, if there's anything else in the wings.
I think we're good for now, Catherine. Thanks.
All right, thank you a lot. All right, so let's move on to Chromebook for inventory entry instructions. So you're going to follow the same procedure you followed before. I'll pop us out. You're going to log in using your email and your unique password. You're going to select day-to-day new. And then from there, you're going to select underneath the banner client inventory functions, you're going to select inventory. So from there, you're going to select the add inventory item. There are 3 different buttons: view inventory, add inventory item, and inventory report. You want to add your inventory item currently. So that's where we're headed. So specifically for Chromebooks, we're going to actually add in a Chromebook to the system so that you can see the specific process for these items. So you can select your region. I'm going to go ahead and select.
This is Megan. Would you mind increasing the, or zooming in more on your screen?
Sure.
Thank you.
How's that?
Great, thank you.
All right. So I'm going to select Maine, that's us. And the inventory number is going to be generated once you're done inputting the information into the system. You don't need to worry about that. Sorry, I'm tripping myself up. I threw myself off. So the inventory number is actually, it's what you can use if you have an internal tracking system. So if you have an inventory system that you're using at your center and you have a code that's associated with these items for your internal purposes, you can add it here, and that way you can be able to cross-reference. If you need to be able to look for the item, but you don't have the NATADS information available, but you have your spreadsheet with your inventory information for your center, you can use that code when you're in the search functions when you're looking for the item later. Search by inventory number, use your unique code, and it will generate the item that you're looking for with the NATADS information. So this is not necessary. It doesn't have an asterisk next to it, but it is a useful tool. From here, you're going to select an inventory category. For your Chromebook, you're going to select computers and related, and then it's going to refresh the page, because it would create new subcategories if they were applicable for this type of item. That's not applicable for this type of item. We don't have a subcategory, so we can go ahead and skip right over that. For the inventory name, you are going to enter Chromebook 4 into the field. For the manufacturer, you're going to select Samsung. And again, if there is a drop-down menu, you're going to want to select from the drop-down menu. Otherwise, it's probably going to throw an error at you. For the model, you're going to also enter Chromebook 4. The serial number is going to be unique to the specific Chromebook that you're entering at that time. I'll just add in a series of numbers. And so for the purchase date for the Chromebooks, this is important. We have these items purchased as June, so 6/29, 2020. And that is true for all the Chromebooks. For this round of purchases, they were all purchased on that date. The retail cost for a Chromebook is $329, and the cost paid was $250. The next field to put in is location. So you can choose the location that the Chromebook is actually physically located at. I know a lot of you have satellite offices, so make sure that you select the office that is actually holding the Chromebook. From there, you're going to look at the area. There's a series of checkable boxes, and it's underneath the area called Associated Modules. You're going to check the device loan box. You're going to check the reuse OEL box. OEL stands for open-ended loan. You're going to make sure that the active box is checked. It comes checked when you generate this form, but it doesn't hurt to make sure. You're going to leave do not check out unchecked. You're going to check do not show on web. And you're going to leave highlight this item on web unchecked. So what's important to know about why you're selecting the device loan and the reuse is because the first time the item is used in an activity, it could alternatively be recorded as a device loan if the item's only going out for 30 days, or as reuse, an open-ended loan if the item length is indeterminate. Every other loan of the item after that first loan will be recorded as a reuse open-ended loan since the item is now effectively used. So most of the time it is going to be used as a reuse item, but it's good to be able to have device loan checked just so you have your options open in case that circumstance does present itself. And it's very important to make sure that you have these checked because there are two separate inventories in NATADS. There is a typical inventory that you can function out of for device loans, and you can even pull out of for reuse. But there is a specific reuse inventory that is only for reuse items. And so checking these provides access to both of those inventories.
This is Christina. I want to go over a scenario to really make it real in terms of, I'm going to use, we're doing Chromebooks currently. Chromebooks are the ones that CFILC purchased through $80 and provided to those of your centers that requested them. They are what we refer to as open-ended loans. They're grants, basically. But the AT Act requires us to call it an open-ended loan. That's how we're accounting for it. Unless you are getting those back, they are not reused. It's just a straightforward goodbye. Catherine will go a little bit more into that. But in the case of a battery, some of you are putting out open-ended loan, basically grants, again, batteries, but some of you are loaning them out and bringing them back and loaning them out again. This is where that becomes very important. The first time you lend out that battery, it's not reused because it is the first person using it. Once that battery comes back and goes out again to the second person, even if it's the same person that you're lending it out to a second time, it just became a reuse item. So that's why that reuse button is so important. And to us at CF, it's even more important because our reuse numbers have been the lowest in the state and should theoretically be the highest considering how many devices you all lend out in your AT loan closets and other center recycle programs that you refer to. Because we're not capturing that data here in NATADS, we're not getting credit statewide, and so our reuse numbers look really, really shameful nationally because we're not accounting for all of the reuse work that you guys are doing because we haven't been able to get folks to put that into NATADS. But for this purpose, and you can use NATADS for your reuse closets, your loan closets. You can use it for anything. In fact, other organizations that have an inventory of AT can also use the system. It's about showing transactions for the state of California, and I know it can be a pain to duplicate and have to enter it into your local database and then this as the statewide database, but really it makes us as a state look better and it reflects what the need is in our state. Our state currently looks as if we don't need any additional dollars because our numbers are so low. If we were actually documenting it correctly in here and doing it consistently, we would be able to show Congress that there's a need for more AT dollars in California. Thank you, Catherine.
Oh, thank you. That's very true. That's probably a good chunk of discussion that occurs in our onboarding meetings, so it might not be news to everyone, but it is information that is incredibly relevant, and it really gets to the heart of what we're doing for our consumers. And if we don't show the work we're doing and we don't show the need for that our consumers have in our state, then we're not going to get the funding that we need to be able to serve them properly. So thank you. So from here, unless we have any other questions, do we have any questions popping up, Megan?
We had a few that I answered in the chat, but we do have one asking if CFILC or Ability Tools will be sending out stickers for these Chromebooks.
Great question. Yes, Lisa did order stickers, and we will be sending them out to you. We didn't want to send them prior to this training because we know we have several newbies. There will be stickers for Ability Tool stickers for the Chromebooks, and then there will be separate stickers for the batteries. Great question. The batteries were not funded by Ability Tools. That's why it's separate stickers.
All right. Are we good to move forward, Megan? Do you have anything else in the questions?
We are good to go. Thank you.
Thanks. All right. So once we've checked all of the appropriate boxes in the associated modules, we're going to hit the description banner. So underneath the description, we have a very simple description to put into here. Let's go ahead and copy it into here. Platinum titanium Wi-Fi compatible 11.6-inch Chromebook OS with 4 gigabytes of memory, weighs 2.6 pounds. Concise, simple, gets the information across that needs to be put in. Once you're done with that field, you're going to scroll down and you'll hit the accessories banner. In that banner, you're going to put any items that are associated with the item that you're putting in. You wouldn't have a separate inventory for an auxiliary item that is associated. Like if you had a tablet that had a stylus that came with it, you wouldn't create a separate item in your inventory for that. So any accessories that are associated with your items go in here. So in the instance of the Chromebook, there is a charger that comes with it. Excuse my typing skills. And so just go ahead and type charger into that field. That way, when it goes out, you know what needs to go out with it, and when it comes back in, you know what needs to be with it. Not terribly relevant with the Chromebooks because we're not anticipating this coming back, but just for future item entry. Scrolling down past the accessories field, you'll see the image banner. Underneath here, you're going to see a prompt that says add an image for this item. It says that it's optional, and for the Chromebooks, we're providing that image, so it's pretty simple. It's pretty easy for you to be able to get it in there. But in the instance of other items where you're going to have items up on display in NATADs, it is very useful for the consumers to be able to see what is available to them. Sometimes a gooseneck mount to someone who might be new to these types of items might be a little confusing just by the name of it. So what you can do is you can click select. You can go to your file where you have your pictures saved, which I actually have mine over here. And you can select the Chromebook image that we have sent to you. It's included in the form that the guide that I'm reading off of, but I also sent it separately as a JPEG. Open it, and then you'll see that above the field where you were choosing to select the image, there is an indicator with a green circle right in front of the word Chromebook for JPEG, the name of your file. The green circle means that it uploaded properly. If it is a different color, if it's red, a kind of orangish color, then something broke. It wasn't the proper formatting. You might want to change your image to, it could be a different, I'm trying to think of a improper image format that would not work. I've run across a few, but I'm going blank right now. Either way, you can save it as a different type of image and you should be able to add it and it would work just fine. Next to that, there is a link to be able to remove that item. If you decided you don't want to use this image, you want to put something different, you can click it and it will remove it from your entry. There is a field that says set image as default image for items of this type. Go ahead and check that box. And from there, you're done. You're going to scroll down to the bottom of the page. You're going to select the Save button that is in the bottom left-hand corner. And it is going to bring you to the item inventory page. So you have the inventory information all inputted here. Everything that you put in is generated. You have these direct loan links and the open-ended loan links for people to be able to see that item specifically in NATADs. Again, with these Chromebooks that's not as useful, but it is a very useful tool to have when you're working with other items in your inventory. You can send a direct link to a consumer if you're exchanging emails so that they can look at items. It goes through the description, the accessories. It shows the image that has been successfully uploaded into the system. And then there are going to be a series of reports. So you're going to see a banner that says device repair history, and it'll have the records of any repairs that have been done to it. It has device loans, device demonstrations, open-ended loans. It doesn't have device demonstrations with a field in it. If you notice, all of the others have a record portion, but the device demonstration doesn't have that record portion because we didn't select device demonstrations as an available option for this item. When these are used, you're going to be associating these items with an activity with a consumer, and that's going to generate in these report fields. And you can see a history of activities that have occurred with this specific item. So you have all the information associated with this item. Now, here's the best part. I don't think that very many of you got a small amount of Chromebooks. You certainly didn't only get one. I know that there's one center in particular that got quite a few, and I have a feeling that they're going to need some assistance getting that all in. So what you can do to make your work so much easier is below the View Inventory banner and above the Inventory Information banner, which, by the way, shows your inventory ID that was generated when you created this item. There are a series of buttons. There's a modify button, a copy button, a delete button, a remove button, a place on hold button, a move to reuse button, and a back to list button. All of these buttons are going to be addressed in future guides, but for just the purposes of the day, when we're dealing with inventory entry, we're going to focus on the copy button, which is the second one in. So you can select the copy button, and it's going to move you to a new page, and it's going to be the same page that you added your previous Chromebook into, same form. The only difference is that since you select a copy, everything is already auto-generated for you, which is fantastic. The only things that have not auto-generated are the serial numbers, because you're going to be putting in a unique serial number for your new Chromebook. And it does not carry over the image. So you're going to want to select and choose the image that you have associated with the Chromebook, upload it, and this is going to make your process go so much faster. It is an absolute lifesaver. And that's pretty much it for the process of entering your Chromebooks in. Does anyone have any questions before we move on to Yetis?
Catherine, this is Megan. We do have a few questions. So the first one is asking where you'd suggest on the Chromebook and the Yeti battery to stick the physical sticker. Where would be a best place to do that?
Great question. It'll be underneath the Chromebook in the corner. Anywhere in one of the corners is fine as long as we can find it. But underneath, there's typically a sticker for the serial number. We would want to add the additional sticker to that same area.
Yeah, and the serial number, if I'm gonna pull over the guide to show you. I had some advocates very graciously provide some images for me. Thank you guys. So the serial number can be found on the box along the side of the Chromebook, which is the most accessible one. It's nice and large and easy to see, easy to access. It's not hidden anywhere. But if you, for some reason, are maintaining this Chromebook and you don't have the box, you can also find it on the underside of the laptop, and it's going to be near the edge where the laptop opens, the opening edge. So we have an image on the screen of that sticker that's on the box. We also have an image of the underside of the Chromebook, and as you can see, it is a very small print. But I was told by one of our wonderful AT advocates that the print is very small, but if you look at subfigure C, a close-up of that print, there's a QR code. And so you can scan it with your phone, and it'll get that information into your phone for you, so you don't have to try and figure out exactly what those little itty-bitty codes are.
And on that note, if you don't know what a QR code is or how to use a QR code, we have published an Ability Tools tip sheet on QR codes that you can find on the Ability Tools resource page.
Thank you, Christina. Good plug.
This is Megan. We do have a few more questions here, and they're regarding the inventory number. So could you discuss how NATADS generates inventory number? And then is it going to be a different sticker that they're going to use with that inventory number? What will that look like?
Okay, so the way NATADS generates that inventory number is, as far as I have noticed from putting in items, unless you have somebody who's putting items in at the same time as you and skipping into your queue, it puts them in a numerical order. You can see a lot of times people will be adding in a number of items and they're going to be in sequential order. So it has a auto-generating feature, but it's not just random numbers. So if you look, let me go ahead and close this out. If you look at these items in your inventory, you can see the inventory ID is the NATADS one that's generated. The inventory number is the one that you can use for internal purposes. So we're looking currently at the NATADS screen for the inventory list. And you can see that a lot of the items that have inventory numbers, they start with the phrase ATN and then a series of numbers. That's because these were items that were transferred over from the AT network, from the AT exchange. And so this was us utilizing that wonderful option to be able to use internal inventory to be able to cross-reference with the new NATADS inventory numbers. And so anything that was in the AT exchange got transferred over with the AT exchange code so that we can still cross-reference these items. The inventory ID is the one that NATADS automatically generates when you create your item. So once you finish your data entry, when we were on that previous page, the successfully inputted item page, and I highlighted the item and said that that NATADS has created that inventory number for you, it's always going to look like this. It's going to be 06-IN- and then a series of 5 numbers. Does that clear up the question regarding how NATADS creates it, or do you guys need more clarification?
This is Megan. I think that was good, but if you need more clarification, please put it in the Q&A. They said yes, that cleared it up. Perfect.
Cool.
And then we have another question here. They're saying they already put their own stickers on the Chromebooks. Should they replace those with the one CFILC is going to send?
This is Christina. No need to replace, just add our sticker to it.
I was going to say, I knew they answered that one, but I knew Christina would chime in for me.
Perfect.
There was another question. Was it regarding, it had to do with the stickers having the inventory ID? What was the question?
Yeah, so the question is, so the inventory ID is a separate auto-generated number that is not on the NATADS sticker, correct? So it's a number from NATADS, not the number that'll be on our sticker.
I'm going to defer to you, Christina, because I'm not sure what we're using for the Chromebooks. If we're going to be using, like, are we utilizing the WASP system, or are we going to have the NATADS ID printed on these stickers? How will they be referred to one another?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually have inventory numbers that are currently on the Ability Tools inventory stickers, and they do, I believe, folks here aren't probably familiar, but CFILC also has an inventory internally called WASP, and we have those WASP numbers associated with the Ability Tool sticker numbers, and so they are generated on the stickers when they arrive at your center.
All right, thank you, Christina. So I'm looking at our time and we're getting really tight. So unless I'm going to ask you guys to put any objections you may have in the chat, I think that it might go a little faster if we go through the guide for the Yeti and we just get to what you guys need to put into the system. Would that be okay? Christina, are you okay with that? We want to be able to have enough time at the end for any additional questions.
Absolutely. And we can always do additional one-on-one TA if needed.
Oh yeah, definitely. You guys can always reach out to me. So unless there are any objections in the chat, Megan, you can let me know.
It looks okay to go on, Catherine. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you. So let's go ahead and use the guide. It'll be a little faster. We don't have to wait for NETADS to load. And we can kind of skim over this portion. So,
Catherine, could you zoom in some as well so it's a little bigger?
Definitely.
Thank you.
Let me see if I can pull it down to do it. Actually, let's just do it down here. How's that look?
Looks great. Thank you.
All right. Okay, guys, so you're going to go ahead and log in like we have in all of our past experiences today. You're going to select the day-to-day button from the NETADS homepage. On the next screen, you're going to look underneath the banner, Client Inventory Functions, and you're going to select the Inventory button. From there, you're going to be guided to the Inventory homepage. You can select the Add Inventory Item button, and that's going to take you to the inventory entry page. So, for the Yetis, what you're going to do is you're going to select your region by selecting your center from that drop-down menu. The inventory number, again, that's going to be for your use. If you have any internal inventory system you want to be able to input into NETADS to be able to cross-reference your items. Inventory category, for this one, you're going to select Daily Living. You're going to go ahead and pull that from the drop-down menu. And just like with the computers and related, there is no subcategory once that page refreshes. So you don't need to worry about selecting a subcategory for this type. For the inventory name, you're going to enter Yeti Goal 0 3000 portable battery into that field. For the manufacturer, you're going to enter Goal 0. For the model, you're going to enter Yeti 3000. The serial number, again, is going to be unique to the item that you're currently adding into the system. So to find your Yeti 3000 serial number, we were again provided this by some wonderful advocates out there. I love you guys, you support me very well. You're going to flip up the lid on the top of the Yeti. And there's going to be a black and green sticker on the top of the battery to the right center of the space that was covered by the lid. Printed on the sticker are the technical specs, the ports, the general information, and the contact information for Goal 0. In between the general information and the contact information, you're going to see that there is a serial number printed clearly on that sticker, and that's the serial number for your specific Yeti. For the purchase date, for the most recent rounds of the batteries, because there are 2 rounds of purchases that were done, if you got the most recent one, which is the one that just came in, you're going to enter in March 30th, 2020, 3/30/2020. If you are still entering batteries that came in from the first round, that came in at the end of last year, that purchase date is 9/24/2020, so September 24th, 2020. And again, no need to take feverish notes. I sent all of these guides to you guys. We're just going over it. The retail cost for a Yeti battery is $2,999.95. The cost paid, you're going to go ahead and enter $2,250 into that field. Again, with the location, you're going to want to select the physical location where the item is being stored. Under the associated modules, it's going to go the same as the other one. The choices that you're going to want to choose for your checkable boxes are going to be checking the box for device loan and checking the box for reuse or open-ended loans. And we discussed the difference between those activities already. You're going to make sure that the active box is checked. Again, it comes auto-checked, but just to be sure, I'm always a big fan of double-checking things. Do not check the box for do not check out. Check the box for do not show on the web. And do not check the box for highlight this item on the web. And so I want to let you guys know, we have a series of screenshots throughout this guide. It does have alt text describing what the screenshots are. And we just breezed on past the screenshot of all the information that we just covered right now. Under the description banner, you're going to be putting in lithium portable power station with rolling dolly for easy transport, 3,700 watt-hour battery, or 3,775 watt-hour battery that weighs 68.6 pounds, considerably more hefty than the Chromebooks. Under the accessories, you're going to have 3 items to put under the accessories banner. It comes with 2 wall chargers, a pre-installed MPPT module, and the roll cart. Under the image banner, you're going to select the button that says select. You're going to select, and a window is going to appear providing you access to your computer files. And so you're going to go ahead and select the file of the image, which is right underneath the words here, subfigure D, provided by CFILC. Again, I sent that out in the email, so you guys have the separate JPEG. If you lose the JPEG, just come in here and steal it from the guide. Check the box for set image as default image for items of this type. And then you're going to select the Save button to complete entry into your center's NATADS inventory. And then we have a screenshot of all of those functions performed for the Yeti battery in the NATADS inventory. It will be the exact same process that we went through with the Chromebooks to be able to add in additional Yeti 3000s into NATADS. It's a very, very streamlined process. Just make sure that you add in your new your new serial number, and make sure to add in that image associated with it also. All right, do we have any other questions? Is there anything else that we want to touch on?
This is Megan. We do have a few questions. The first one is saying, wouldn't it be, so the original shipment of the batteries, is the correct date supposed to be September 24th, 2019? You said 2020.
Did I read it wrong? I hope I typed it correctly. Oh, I typed it incorrectly. I will update for you guys. You're right. Thank you. It is 2019.
Great. Thank you for catching that. And let's see. We do have somebody with their hand raised. Let's see who it is. Marquis, I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk right now. So go ahead and ask your question.
Hi, just a quick clarification. The MPPT part of the Yeti battery, is that the interface for the solar charger, or is that something else?
That is, can you go up to it for me?
Oh, we're going to go down then.
That has nothing to do, as far as I recall, with the, yeah, it does not. It is the actual modular system on the face of the battery. It does not have to necessarily do with the solar panels, but for those of you that are using the Boulder solar panels, it is part of the interface that the solar panels are a part of.
Okay. Thank you.
And I don't see any more questions, so feel free to type them into the Q&A if folks have them, or you can raise your hand as well.
And please do feel free to reach out. I know I say it a lot. I can't say it enough. Please reach out if you guys need any kind of technical assistance with NATADS. I'm happy to set up trainings for multiple individuals at your centers. I'm happy to just sit down and have a phone discussion and walk through it with you. I had a couple of incidents with that today. NATADS wasn't wanting to work for me, so it was a little problematic. But anytime you guys need any assistance, that's what I'm here for.
And in addition to that, CFILC will be doing a CFILC refresher webinar on all of our statewide programs and how they interface with the independent living centers across the state. In early September, we brought on some new staff recently and are bringing on some additional staff, and we're going to be providing that training to them tomorrow, and then working with them as a team to do it statewide for all the centers to participate and learn about all of CFILC's programs.
This is Megan. We do have a few questions in now. One says, we currently have batteries in community centers in remote locations. Do we still use our ILC as the location for the battery, or do we enter the physical location of the community centers?
I think that's going to be a Christina question, because you're not going to be putting in specific addresses. It has the ability to put in the name of a location or the city. It doesn't need to be that specific. So if it's in the same city as you, it's a wash. But Christina, do you have any specific guidance on that?
Not when it comes to those specific agreements that you're doing with your community centers. As long as it's in your agreement, it's sort of a little bit different in terms of who's utilizing it. But again, if a consumer ends up checking it out from the community center that you have an agreement with and have left the Yeti, then that's when the person's information would get into the system rather than the community center.
Great. I hope that answered your question. If not, please follow up with us in the Q&A. We have another question, just wanting to know what information is going to be on the stickers that CFILC is sending out.
The stickers are essentially our logo. The Ability Tools logo is on them and a number. And if any of the AT advocates are on the line that want to add to what else is on it, I don't have any in front of me, so I'm imagining the picture that I looked at the other day when we reordered.
And a follow-up question, how soon can ILCs expect to get the stickers?
Hopefully next week. We placed the order last week, so they are en route.
And then Christina, with those stickers, you were saying that we have two separate types of stickers, some of them for different items. Are they looking any different for your different types?
That's a great question, Catherine. So the Chromebook stickers, the Ability Tool stickers with the logo on it, I just described what those will look like for the Chromebook. And the stickers for the batteries, again, not associated with dollars from the Ability Tools program. So instead, those stickers have the Disability Disaster Access and Resource logo on them and a different number.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions in the chat, Megan?
No, I don't see any other questions.
Oh, look at us coming in under time by 5 minutes.
Well, I definitely want to thank everybody. We kept all but 46 of 48 participants with us. We very much appreciate you guys joining us today. And this is Catherine's first round at doing this size of a webinar training, but this is definitely information that she knows frontwards and backwards. And we are grateful that she has been able to provide this level of detail with all of you today. Again, we are always available to ask any questions and help you out at your center. That's what CFILC's mission is, building the capacity of independent living centers. And with that, I will turn it over to Catherine for last words, and then Megan.
Thank you, Christina. I think I saw something come up in the Q&A, so we might have another question coming our way, Megan?
No, just saying thank you for the presentation.
Oh, well, thank you guys for coming. So I'm going to be updating because I have woefully put the wrong date for the Yeti battery, guys. I'm going to be sending out some updated guides for you. Let me know if there's anything else you need. Let me know if there are any other items that you would find useful. And it not only will help inform this training, but it's also going to help inform future trainings, because we're going to be putting together a lot of these very detailed specific NATADS trainings for you guys to make sure that you have as easy an access to the system as possible. It's a really great system. It's going to really benefit our consumers if we can utilize it to its fullest.